And we are live.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm so excited to have all of you joining us here at the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. I'm so excited to have all of you out there joining us from all over the world. The Knoxville Entrepreneur Center is a nonprofit business accelerator located right in the heart of downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. And we are dedicated above all to changing lives through entrepreneurship. And that means no matter where you are in that entrepreneur journey, you could be just beginning, that flame, that flicker, or you could be a multi-million-dollar company. And we're here for you, and we're happy to meet you if we haven't already. I am Chris McAdoo. I'm the Chief of Strategy here at what we call the KEC. And I am so excited to have a conversation with our guest of honor, Mark Schaefer, y'all.
Thank you.
So, Mark.
See, this is a good sign right here.
Yeah?
See, I'm a teacher. That's a good sign right there.
Well, Mark, the reason that I've made notes is because it's a book that you take notes in. Your books, this is the 10th one?
Yeah, it's my 10th book.
This is the 10th book. Mm-hmm. And if there's a woo!
Go ahead and whoop.
Wait. I've got one more whoop. Go ahead and tell the people where you rank on Amazon right now.
Number one.
Number one.
In fact, this it's okay. Well, I'll brag one moment.
There you go.
Actually, in the marketing category, this is now ranking number 1 and 3. Because the paperback is 1 and the audiobook is 3. And a lot of people said they've never seen that before. So that's really exciting.
Well, it's exciting for so many reasons. But one, regardless of where you're listening from, if you're here in Knoxville, if you're in Greenville, South Carolina, or if you're all across the world, there are people in your town that you may or may not be aware of that are doing amazing world-changing things, right? And so to kick things off, Mark, I'm going to kick them off just like you do in the book. And I'm going to start when you were just a 12-year-old boy. All of us are weird kids inside, right?
Yeah.
Like all of us are that weird kid. Imagine yourself in the 7th grade. Even if you were cool, you were weird, right? And Mark, you tell a wonderful story about your first sort of foray into going from that weird kid to finding a community that made you feel like you were something bigger. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for my many fans out there, I wasn't really a weird kid. I just made all this up. So the first chapter of my book, Belonging to the Brand, Why Community is the Last Great Marketing Strategy, and we'll probably talk a little bit about that provocative title. The first chapter of this book is the most depressing chapter in the history of business books.
It's a great way to start.
Yeah, it's a great way to start. And because one of the reasons I wrote this book is a few years ago, I saw a headline in the New York Times, and it said, "The loneliest generation." Mm-hmm. And we see it in the news every day, right? About the rising levels of depression and isolation and loneliness. And I read about how really our children and our teenagers they're suffering. They're suffering. And it just hit me really hard. And I thought about, when I was a child, when I was 12 years old, I write about this in the book. Something happened to me that was very traumatic. And I escaped a sexual molestation attempt. And so I spent the next 2 years as a ghost, trying to miss this bully. He said he would kill me if I told anybody. Mm-hmm. So nobody knew. My parents didn't even know till I was 30 years old. And so I dropped out of everything. I was just a shadow. And then it got worse because then I went to a new high school, and they were all in these cliques. And I didn't have even a conversation with anybody probably my whole first semester of high school. And then a miracle happened. I don't know how I got the courage to do this or why, but I was a freshman in this high school, and I tried out for the school play, the school musical, which was like the cool thing. And I got the lead in the play. And I had never been in a play. I'd never sung before. And I was like, okay, well, my name's not up there. And everybody around me is buzzing. Said, who's Mark Schaefer? Who's Mark Schaefer? And then my name was at the top. And it was like this divine intervention. And now I belonged. I belonged and I was accepted. And that changed my life. It unleashed me. I became a leader. I got involved in student government. I started writing. And I've always been haunted by this idea in these formative years. If I hadn't belonged to that community, would I be here with you today? And what about the loneliest generation? What if they're not unleashed? We have millions of children who are like me. And so I started studying this. And went down a lot of deep rabbit holes, academic rabbit holes about psychology and sociology, and really learned about this power of community. And so that's point one. The second point is, don't be afraid. This is a business book. And I tell you in this business book why community is a very, very good marketing strategy. Because what's brand marketing all about? It's creating an emotional, I'm basically answering all your questions in one.
Well, thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank you. It's been a delight. But the other issue is our marketing doesn't work like it used to. Nobody sees your ads, right? Last night, my wife and I were streaming TV. We usually stream because I'm so tired. It's all I can do. So we're watching Netflix or whatever. I don't see any ads. And this weekend, I'm going on a long drive to West Virginia. I'm going to listen to music the whole time on Spotify. I'll never hear an ad. I'll listen to an audiobook. I never hear an ad. So our consumption of ads is down 95% in the last 5 years. So if that's the way you're reaching your customers, it just ain't working, because even if someone sees it, they don't believe it. We need something else. How do we create this emotional connection, right? Why does Coca-Cola make you think of polar bears instead of sugar water, colored sugar water? That's what it really is. But I gave a speech in Poland, and I said, when I say Coca-Cola, what do you think of? They said, polar bears. Even in Poland, they think of polar bears. I did give a speech one time. I said, when I say Coca-Cola, what do you think of? And the guy in the front row said, sadness. Wow. But that's a story for another day. Probably another book.
Well, let me jump in here, because what I see here in our audience is an incredibly wide range of entrepreneurs. And we've got science and technology leaders. We have marketing experts. We have makers. We have publishers, people from all walks of life and all skill sets. And like you say, this is a business book, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But people do business with people. So let's talk about trust.
Yeah.
You talk about how does a business build trust within a community. In the book, you talk about how, I want to say, if your neighbor says, hey, you should try this, it's like an 84% success rate. But an ad has, like you said, about a 5% success rate. So how can people work to build that trust within a community?
Well, I mean, I think all communities have to start with trust. And usually that starts with a person that you trust. And so that's another thing that I'm passionate about and I write a lot about, is the power of the personal brand. And what I want to beg each of you listening around the world and here tonight, work on your personal brand. Because we've got this little thing called artificial intelligence coming after us, and it's going to replace a lot of jobs. But if you're known and loved and there's an emotional connection to you, you're going to be okay. The personal brand, as far as I know, is the only thing, I've been saying this for 7 years, it's the only thing that will save us as artificial intelligence comes, for us for these jobs. So it does start with trust. And I think the trust in the community, the beautiful thing that happens is if you create something really meaningful in a community and people start talking about it outside the community, that's the best marketing you can ever have. Because people don't believe ads, but they do believe each other. They believe their friends and their neighbors. And so the idea is, if you can create something in a community, we've got a couple of people here from my community, And I'll give you an example of how this works. So we're doing experiments in the metaverse. And we had a big breakthrough last time. We learned how to clap. That was a big deal on the metaverse, how to clap on the metaverse. And so we had a holiday party in the metaverse, and then we went to a fake ski slope. I bought a fake penthouse on the metaverse, by the way. So my wife, she's here. She didn't know that, but I'll explain it to you later. And it wasn't that much. So we're fake people in this fake place, but there's people there from all over the world. And we decided at the end of this party, we're going to jump in a hot tub. Yes, I have a fake digital hot tub in my penthouse. So it's worth every penny. And so here we are, and the sun is setting over the fake mountains. And I've got people from all over the world sitting in this hot tub. And people took pictures of it. And these pictures went all over the internet. All right? And here's what happened. People said, Mark, I feel like I'm missing out on something. How do I join this thing? Right? Because people, if I said, hey, everybody, join my community, they're going to go, ah. But when they see other people say, this is awesome. Yeah. Look at me. I'm in a fake hot tub with my clothes on. Drinking fake champagne.
Does that lead? Here's the question.
It leads to nothing. So what is that? Honestly.
Well, it's interesting because I think that, like you said, the loneliest generation, right?
Yeah.
We have tools that should and could, by all nature, connect us in ways like we've never imagined. Fake hot tubs and all.
Try it.
But are they?
Don't knock it till you try it, Chris.
Hey, I'm in. I'll go get my trunks. So how do you take like the AI? Jonathan Oldacre asked a great question, talking about content glut. He's a marketing professional that says like, man, we are about to get hit with AI generated. ChatGPT is something that hope everybody here has read up on.
Experiment with it.
Just to see what it is, but we're about to have a glut of that content. So how do marketing professionals or businesses talk about this without sounding like, get off my lawn? You know what I mean? How do we sound professional and educated and forward looking without giving into it and without sounding like a Luddite?
Well, yeah, I'm going to embarrass somebody in the room here today. It's Susie Trotta, okay? And I've loved Susie for a long time, and I've used her as an example in my classes. And this is what I do. So I show Instagram accounts of other real estate agents, right? And it's like it looks like the Sunday paper ads, right? Come to my open house, right? And Susie's Instagram account, she became famous for showing the stupid things that people leave in their house when they're supposed to be cleaned out, and it's hilarious. And she's her with cats and hers with dogs. And it's just joy. Okay. Now, some people might say, well, that doesn't seem very professional. But because Susie opened the curtains and said, this is what it's like to be me. So the subtitle of one of my best-selling book so far is called Marketing Rebellion. Well, this one just hasn't had a chance yet. So Marketing Rebellion, the most human company wins. And the idea is to use every opportunity to show your face and show your heart and show your smile. Create that personal brand. Create that emotional connection, because that's what's going to win. Now, maybe that's your personality. Get off my lawn. That might be all right. That might just stand out.
This might just work out.
That just might, if your community is basically Clint Eastwood's, then go for it, right? Just get off my lawn. And so, that might be the way you stand out. Sometimes in my content, this is funny. The other day, a big leader in our industry said, oh, you're so controversial. And I just think, how am I controversial? It's because I stand out because I tell the truth, I think.
Okay.
And that's controversial in my field of marketing. So it's like, if I'm happy, I say I'm happy. If I'm confused about something, I say, I'm confused. I got to interview Tom Peters recently. Mm-hmm. He's the author of the best-selling business book ever. Soon it will be the second best-selling business book ever, because I just haven't had a chance yet. but it's getting there. The momentum is building. But, I was listening to Tom Peters, and he is so compelling. I thought, what is it about him? And I said, he's bold. He's bold. He tells the truth with courage. He tells the truth with courage. I think that's what Susie does. I think that's John Phillips is in the room. I admire his account. And so that's who I follow, because I want you to tear it back. Show me what it's like to be you. That's where you get people's emotion and where you get their heart.
Well, I think that comes back to trust, though.
Yeah.
Seth Godin talks about there is no business ethics. There is only ethics, right? There is only yourself to talk. I mean, you know what I mean? And so how do you build a movement, build a company or a community around that truth? Tell us a little bit about the example in your book, Boss Mom.
Boss Mom. Yeah. So as Chris said, this is my 10th book. And in this book, I did something I've never done before. I devoted one chapter to a person. And in 2018, I was working on my Marketing Rebellion book, and I was looking for what's the future of business. And I went to this business breakfast, and I was staring her in the face. It's this lady. Her name is Dana Malstaff. Dana was an entrepreneur, and she became pregnant, and she was torn. Am I an entrepreneur? Am I a mom? She said, I am going to do both. She started a community called Boss Mom. And in the first 9 months of her community, she had a 6-figure income. She's now approaching $1 million in revenue. She has 70,000 people in her community. Her business has doubled every year with, pay attention, no salespeople, no marketing people, no marketing budget, zero. It's the ultimate marketing. It's marketing without marketing. It's the only marketing that people will actually love and embrace. It's community, because we need it. We long to belong. And Dana, her job, she said, here's my job, leading this community. It's safe. That's my job. I create a safe place for people to talk about what's going on in their lives, what's going on in their business. And she doesn't have to, she has courses and books and videos and conferences and events. And all she said is, we're having an event in Chicago and it sells out because you got 70,000 people who love you. And that is that's the ultimate marketing. It's the ultimate marketing. And I actually end my book with a quote from Tom Peters. And, he told me 2 years ago he was retiring, and he unretired. And I thought he was retiring. And I said, look, if you're at the end of your career, what would you give as advice to marketing people out here around the world? And he thought for a minute, and he said, at the end of the day, are you proud of what you do? Do you go home and tell your family you're proud of what you do? And I think about, what if you created the most belonging company, or the most belonging university, or the most belonging church? Wouldn't that be a great legacy? Wouldn't that be something you'd be proud to tell your family? So I think it's the ultimate marketing in many, many ways. Community isn't new, but it's been overlooked. The power of creating this emotional connection. And I'll just pass on writing a book is like getting a new master's degree for me. I write and study for 2 years, and then I know something. And one of the things I learned in this book is that the power of community isn't really establishing a bond between you and your customers. It's establishing a bond between the customers. Because when they love each other and become friends, that transfers to the brand. And it creates this layer of emotional switching costs. If I leave this brand, I leave my friends. It's profound. And the other thing is that this is marketing that works, but it's marketing that heals. And I said, this is a business book, but this community heals. It does something good for the world. And I think that's really important to think about.
Well, talking about doing good things for the world, anybody that is in a position to have an impact one of the biggest things that I think holds us back is that fear of starting, right? Because you use the word what if. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I catastrophize. And it's like, well, what if I roll this rock down the hill and it'll probably roll down and maybe it'll bust the window out of my car. And then I'll catastrophize. There you go.
That's good.
You know words.
I think I'll steal that.
That'll get
May
words.
I say that I came up with that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
In Words with Friends,
Just
with Susie.
Twitter down for a minute.
So but with that being said, I almost forgot. You guys, if you are tuning in from wherever, I am Chris McAdoo, joined by the one and only Mark Schaefer.
Set the room.
Set the room.
Set the room.
If you've got questions and you're listening on, or you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, or any of the platforms, please just pop them in the comment section and we'll try to get to them. But we're coming to you live from the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center.
Which is awesome.
So let's talk about that what if. What if it works? What does it look like to get started? And how do people, sort of get over that first step of being scared? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm messy?
Yeah.
What if I'm not quite right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing I found. I studied the largest communities in the world, and the smallest community, I think, in the book has 30 people in it. Actually, it's a real estate community in Jacksonville, Florida. And the common thing I found, each community starts with people who are already around you. It could be people that read your blog or listen to your podcast. It could be friends you go out to lunch with, and they kind of believe in what you do. And so that's the key idea, is finding a purpose that intersects, that makes you want to belong. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I'm really proud of is I have a lot of brand new original case studies in this book. B2B, B2C, small companies, big companies. There's even a single mom raising 5 kids that has a community of 50,000 people. And she's, she's doing an amazing job. So there's a lot of different kinds of ideas. But there's this idea of this purpose that intersects. So I'm going to use a familiar example, and that is Harley Davidson.
Okay.
So here's one thing you never hear from Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson sells transportation, but you never hear this. We're going crazy. Come on down. It's our President's Day sale. Our boss is gone. $1,000 off. You'll never hear that, because here is the Harley Davidson purpose. We want to fulfill the dreams of our customers through the motorcycle lifestyle, which is a friendly way of saying we want to make you a badass. The only way to be a badass is to have a Harley Davidson, really, right? So that from the top of the company to the bottom of the company. Now, it's not about meeting a quarterly sales goal. It's about, look, we're in this together. And everything about that machine, how it looks, how it sounds, everything is about being a badass. So it's finding, I've got a whole chapter about this in the book. It's about, what do you stand for that intersects, like Patagonia. If you say Patagonia, what do you think about? Environmental sustainability and responsible recreation, right? I have a friend, he said, Matthew lives out in Denver. He said, I will only buy Patagonia because I believe in his purpose intersects with Patagonia's purpose, right? It's a reason to gather, all right? So that's different than your point of differentiation as a marketer. Your point of differentiation might be, we have the biggest cheese selection in town. Great. But I don't want to gather every week for that, right? Now, what if you're teaching cooking classes? What if you're bringing in, demonstrations? So you got to have a reason to gather that's meaningful to people, because this is just like anything else, right? They could be part of your community, or they could go watch The Mandalorian. You're still competing for attention. So you've got to have something, you've got to have meaningful value in your community.
Talk about creating that meaningful value around relationships and not transactions.
Yeah. So most communities fail. And the reason that they fail is because Here's the purpose of our community. This is going to shock you. We want to sell more of our stuff, which you have to do, but that's not a reason why people would want to gather. So if you look at the great communities of the world, none of them have part of their purpose like we're going to meet this quarterly sales goal, right? It really takes over in terms of being, this purpose. So most communities fail because the companies say, we're going to sell more stuff. And then people go say, I'm tired of that. So it has to be this intersection of purpose. Now, here's the exciting part to me. 70% of all the communities that make it are dedicated to one thing, customer self-service. So you've got a problem with our software, go to our community. And we've got friendly people there in our community that will help you. And that means you don't call us, so we save money. So it's easy to measure. But they're missing the bigger picture of love and emotion and saying, I can collaborate with you. I can co-create with you. Look at what the best managed companies are doing now. IKEA, Lego, Nike. They all have communities that are building their products. And they're saying, if you help us build this product, you're going to get part of the intellectual property. You're going to get part of the money. In my little community, we're writing a book. We've got Jules here. We've got Valentina here. They've written chapters in this book. They've never written a book, but we've written a book together, co-creation. And guess what? Whatever money they make, they're going to get the money. So, and it's going to be a much better book than I could write about this topic. We haven't announced it yet, but it's coming out in June. So if you're just focused on transactions, you're missing collaboration, co-creation, trust, getting information about your customers, learning. I mean, my community, there's people from all over the world. They're sharing things with me that are going on around the world. I never would have known these things. This has become my university. Every speech, every blog post I write now starts from some conversation coming out of this community. So it's overwhelming how much value is being created there. And here's the thing that just blows my mind. This opportunity of looking at a community through the lens of brand marketing is completely overlooked by companies today. This is the biggest overlooked opportunity in the history of overlooked opportunities. And it's staring us right in the face.
Well, it's a good time to ask a question posed by Lisa Skinner. Lisa's talking about what happens when a company has set their path. And maybe they were focused on the customer. Maybe they were focused on that why when they started. But then inertia takes over. But then process takes over. But then it goes from 1 to 10 to 50 to 500 people. How do you reignite the energy within? Let's say you're in a company. Let's say you're an employee there and you see that opportunity. How do you reignite that culture?
It has to come from the top. You look at what's happened like at Microsoft. Microsoft was a really broken company. And Microsoft has become a very energized, dare I say it, cool company. And it's because of their CEO. And there's no such thing as a grassroots cultural change. So it's got to come from the person at the top who owns the budget and the strategy. They set the tone for the culture. So if you've got a culture, the culture really becomes your marketing. If you get the culture right, you get the marketing right. Because the culture, that's the story that's going to be told in the world. That's what your employees are going to talk about. Do you say, yes, we are customer centric, or do you really do crazy things to help your customers and please your customers? That's what's going to be told. So it all starts with culture. If the culture is broken, if the culture is sick, the marketing is going to be sick. So the most successful marketing companies usually have a pretty good culture too.
Well, what is, from Haley Sprinkle, she's kind of wondering, as a marketing company owner herself or a marketing professional, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you are seeing from marketing professionals or from companies that are marketing right now?
Well, I think, and then hopefully everybody will smile when I say this. I mean, this is your time. This is the time for small to medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
The changes going on in the world, the big companies can't adopt. They can't adopt. And I think increasingly the personal brand is the brand.
Okay.
All right. So before Elon Musk went off the rails, okay, so why, when all of you go out and buy your Mercedes-Benz, Mercedes-Benz spends $945 per car on advertising. Advertising that generally doesn't work. Now, how much does Tesla spend on advertising per car? 0. Tesla does not have an advertising department. Why? Because Elon Musk. All right. There was a day, a few years ago, when he was like the most revered entrepreneur, the greatest entrepreneur of our generation. Perhaps he will reclaim that title. But people believe in him. All right. So this is a key idea, right? The personal brand is the brand. Who do you love at Ford? Who do you love at Verizon? Sorry, Verizon. I haven't. Yeah, Ford, Verizon. I still have an opening in my podcast sponsorship. Then I'll say nice things about you. But who do you love at Procter and Gamble? And they're stuck with their sick marketing because all they know how to do is advertise on daytime television. And they've got this scaffolding of relationships with advertising agencies that are holding these sick practices in place. I worked with a big pharmaceutical brand. I was working with this brand manager. We had all these ideas. And so she was trying all these ideas. And because this was a global pharmaceutical company, every idea she had to go through this big advertising agency. She said, Mark, every idea I've had, I take it to this agency and it comes back an ad. That's all they know how to do. I am ready to risk my career and just find anybody that will help me other than this agency. So the personal brand is the brand. The most human company wins. The company that shows their heart, that shows their smile, that shows their faces. Think about everything you do in your business. If you're doing marketing that people hate, stop it. And double down. Because you're a consumer. If you're doing robocalls, if you're doing spam, stop it and double down on what people love. The most human company wins. So look at everything you do, every email, every text message, every meeting, every complaint. And how do you show your heart? How do you show your compassion, your caring? Show your faces, show your smiles. Go to your website tonight, call Ezekiel, he can help you. And those pictures you've got of, the ethnically diverse people holding hands and running through a cornfield? Those stock photos, take them off. Just because you have a human picture, that doesn't mean it's human marketing. Show your faces, show your customers, show what you do, peel back the curtain and show people your heart and what your culture is like. And that's what's going to make you win.
Well, I think we can talk about, it's the Bill Gates or the Elon Musks or the, whatever, but you also get Elizabeth Holmes with that. The cult of personality. So there's a danger there.
If you're a sucky person, then don't do your personal brand.
Well, there you go. So there's an asterisk. But Patrick Hunt.
If you suck, just ignore everything I just said.
Just all those notes.
I only work with nice people.
All those notes somebody just took, just go.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick Hunt has a great observation and question. Patrick's a technology leader. And he was thinking about consistency. So his comment was that he believes great branding is about 10% creativity and 90% consistency.
Right.
So what kind of tools can people use to show up consistently, and what habits can they form to make it happen?
ChatGPT. Just kidding.
Sorry, robots.
And actually, thanks for. I mean, these are amazing questions. So thanks for everybody that are asking these questions. Well, first of all, he is absolutely right, and this is something I talk about all the time. That I think consistency is more important than genius. I think one of the reasons I'm here today, one of the reasons why I'm so incredibly blessed to have so many people around the world who buy my books and hire me to, do consulting or speeches, is because I blogged for 650 weeks in a row without missing. Then I took a little break for COVID. Then I came back and blogged another 120 weeks in a row. And, it's easy to think, and when I say blog, what I'm saying is, how do you create a personal brand? You got to show up. It might not be a blog, but it could be a video, could be a podcast. Maybe if your customers are on Instagram or TikTok or something like that, right? But you have to show up consistently. And one of the nicest compliments I ever got is a lady wrote me. I didn't know who she was, never heard of her before. And she wrote me a note. She said, I start my day with you. I get a cup of coffee and I open up my email to see what you sent me today. Now, that is a privileged position that I only earned because I show up every week. She can count on me. And it's easy to think, oh my gosh, I just feel terrible this week. I'm just going to skip a week. And that's a slippery slope because you've got to show up. You got to fight for it. And guess what? You're going to get sick. You're going to go on vacation. So create something ahead of time. Be consistent and show up because that's what I agree. That's what really wins. This is one of the things you mentioned in your podcast. I was recently named, what was it? Number 3 digital marketer. Yep. Seth Godin was number 1 and some other guy was number 2.
Blah, 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 blah.
So
for now.
Yeah, because I just haven't had a chance yet. But so I'm number 3. Am I the 3rd smartest marketer in the world? The answer to that is profoundly no. But I'm known because I show up. I can name right now 10 marketing people who I admire that are smarter than me. But they're not known in the world. And if you're known and through that consistent content, then you're going to get the opportunities. I used to work for Alcoa. I was in the top 1% of the executives at Alcoa. I ran this global team. I got 7 patents, plaques on the wall, got 2 master's degrees. The people who read my books, do they know that? No. Do they care? No. The only thing they care about is, am I showing up this week? Are you known or not? If you're known, you get the doors open. You get the phone calls returned. You get the new opportunities. That's the only sustainable competitive advantage any of us have in this world. Nobody cares where you went to school. Nobody cares what plaque's on your wall. Are you showing up and helping them generously and showing up as a real human being? That's what creates your personal brand.
Well, I always like to think, we talk about this in the podcast too, like I always talk about that brand, right, as promises you make and promises you keep. Mm-hmm. That's mine. We've got that, internet. But speaking to that, right, about speaking truth to
copyright, Chris McAdoo, 2023.
About speaking
McAdoo
about
Productions,
there we go. But speaking about making promises, right? So as a young company, when you are, making promises to people, how do you determine, let's say one of our guys here, Andrew Hanna, was talking about as a startup, right? How do you even know how to define your brand? And how do you know what promises to make in the first place?
Yeah, well, two quick comments on that. Something that's really exciting to me is that 85% of the startups today are leading with community. I mean, I'm right. I'm not a bragging man, but I'm right. And the young people today that are starting new businesses, they are showing us the way. They are 20 years from now, we're going to be looking back at the marketing today, thinking, man, man, all this advertising, you can't even watch something on YouTube without seeing an ad and robocalls. What were we thinking? I am so glad we all have these communities today. We're going to look back 20 years from now and say, what the heck were we thinking? It was so rude to show up that way. So that's number one, is that I think it's exciting that the young people today, they know how they want to be treated, and they want to treat their customers. I mean, I am in awe of Gen Z and millennials. I mean, they're teaching us the new ways to create a business. Now, here's where I would start with a brand. When I meet with a customer for the first time, I'll get the leaders of the company around a table. I'll say, get out a piece of paper. And I'll say, how do you finish this sentence? Only we. And if the 5 people around the room, if they all wrote down 5 different things, they have no idea what they're doing, right? So what does that do? Only we. To finish that sentence, you've got to know why people love you. What makes you different? If you can finish that sentence, you'll know what makes you different. You'll know who you need to send this message to. You'll know where to send the message. So by finishing that sentence, only we, it basically unveils your marketing plan. It may take you 3 weeks to figure it out, but you got to do it. And here's the way I usually figure it out. I'll say, I'm going to go out and talk to your customers. And I'll go out and I'll say, what's going on with this industry and what keeps you up at night? And why do you love this brand? Why do you keep coming back to this person or this company? And you listen a few times and you hear the words. And you say, okay, I got it. That's it. And by the way, don't confuse what you sell with what people are buying, right? John Phillips here is selling, he makes knives. People aren't buying knives from John Phillips.
Phillips Forged and Primo Goods, wherever you're listening from.
.com. John Phillips is creating a unique piece of art, an heirloom that I'm going to pass on to my children. I'm buying a piece of beautiful art that I will pass on to my children forever. I'm not buying a knife, right? So you have to think, don't confuse what you're selling with what people are buying. And there might be different segments that might buy for different reasons. There's a famous marketing framework created by Clayton Christensen. He was a famous professor at Harvard, called the jobs to be done theory, right? So I was meeting with Regal Cinema, and I guess I could say this. And Regal is saying, well, everything we do, our competitors just copy us. We put in bigger seats and they put in bigger seats. And we have a deeper base and they put in a deeper base. I said, well, you got to think about, why do they hire you, your theater? So I think it's a good place to take a date. So how do you become the best theater for a date? So that's another way to think about your strategy and what are people, why are they really buying you? What are they really, buying from you?
How can you be an experience versus a commodity?
Yeah, ultimately.
Back to your Harley Davidson example.
Yeah.
Right? You're buying into that community and it matters to you.
You're buying into badassery.
Badassery. So speaking of badassery, Frederick.
Is this a question about you?
Badassery. No, certainly not. But Frederick asks a really great question about community over time. Because over the course of the next 8 to 10 years, you're going to see the Gen X wealth go to millennial and Gen Z.
Yeah.
You're going to see the biggest transfer of wealth in the history of time to new decision makers.
Yes.
Right? A more diverse set of decision makers than we've ever had that care about different things.
Yeah.
So how does that community grow? How do you keep it healthy? And how do you let it change over time?
I'm still figuring that out. There's, I think, a really valuable part of my book is I talk about this mindset change. And I have a great friend in outside of London, and he has a B2B marketing agency. and it just wasn't going anywhere. So he had this group of people that he would have lunch with every month, and they got along. He said, let's create this little community. Well, now it's blown up, and his community is bigger than his business. People don't even know what his business is anymore, because it started out as community-based marketing. Now his community is bigger than his business. And he has a great quote in the book. He said, this overturns everything I learned at the university about leadership, because it's not about control. It's not about an organization and a chart. It's about giving up control and nurturing people. And so in my group, I started this group, and it's a community. And by the way, my community is free. Anybody can join it. Just send me an email and we'll get you in. And I thought, well, people in this community, they're going to be interested in, what I'm interested in, right? So they're going to want to know about writing books. They want to know about public speaking and personal branding. So I said, well, here's our chat rooms for personal branding and writing. And those are the emptiest rooms in the community. Because they said, no, we want to talk about the metaverse, and we want to talk about NFTs, and we want to, talk about artificial intelligence and how it's taking our jobs, and we got to fight this thing. And so they took me in a different way, and it's a better way. Mm-hmm. It's a better way. So you got to put your ego down and say, and that's what you should want to do as a brand. You want your customers to take you where you need to go. You want to listen to their innovations and their ideas, which you will never get sitting in a room by yourself. Another thing that's so different about this, marketing is ephemeral. You have an ad, maybe people see it, put a tweet out there, maybe people see it. You get money for a campaign, then the money goes away, the campaign goes away, it's ephemeral. But a community is an implied social contract. That's a new way to think about marketing. If you create this place where your friends are hanging out, you better not quit, right? Because all this great advocacy that's coming out of this community is going to flip. So it's just a whole new mindset. And yet, for those people that are willing to try something new, and look, it's not a big commitment. Experiment, try it, do a pilot, see how it works. Every one of these communities, I think the biggest community in the world is probably Twitch. This is a place, if you're not familiar, this is where millions and millions of people go every day to watch other people play video games. Not my jam. But for millions of other people, actually I do it because look, I go to Fortnite and I die, and I go to Fortnite and I die. So at least I can watch it like, oh wow, they didn't die. This is like, wow, how'd they do that? They got to level 1. So every community, even Twitch, starts with 5 people or 10 people. It's the people who listen to your podcast or read your blog or you go to lunch with and you say, I've got an idea. I love thinking about the future of marketing, and I don't want to do it alone. Or I have fans who love exotic cutlery, and I have all these people that love me. They want to see my process. Maybe there's 10. Start it up and just see how it goes. And create some conversations and maybe give them some little, extra things to talk about. It really is that simple. Every community starts with 5 friends. Even Twitch, which is probably the biggest community in the world.
Well, even communities, you think about companies that start out with like 5 people in hoodies in a garage.
Yeah.
Right. Even that is a community.
Yeah. I got to tell you, how Twitch started? There was this guy named Jason. Some of the young people who are Twitch people. What's a Twitch person? Is it a Twitcher?
I think that's something different.
I don't know. Oh.
Don't Google that. Somebody says.
Twitter down. Twitter down. This is all about my brand. So
my
this
gosh.
guy, his name was Jason, and he thought it'd be cool. He was walking around with a camera on his head, and he just live streamed his life. And he became so popular, he said, let's create some software that people can do this. So he said, people are going to live stream sporting events and all this stuff. And there were like these nagging gamers that kept saying, we love this. He said, no, it's not for you. I got this other vision. I got this other idea. They said, no, we love watching other people watch video games. He said, you got to be kidding me. No, we love this. And they had all this passion and all this energy. And that became this multi-billion-dollar business that was bought by Amazon, and it all started with Jason walking around with a camera on his head. But he listened to this little group of customers. And that was not his vision. That was not his idea. He let the passionate community take him where it needed to go.
Well, talking about following the community rather than leading. Like the one thing that, particularly talking about the young people, excuse me, I one-wheeled here. Hey, for you guys you got tuning in, I'm Chris McAdoo. This is Mark Schaefer, and we are coming to you live from the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. Thank you for joining us. If you've got questions,
We
should we?
Vogue.
I don't. Jasmine's back there helping us. I don't know. But speaking of, of those people and the particularly young people, a sort of a two-part question is, one, how do we let go of command and control? How do we let that community guide us while still continuing to give status to those folks that are willing to raise their hand and be community leaders?
Yeah, I'm terrible at that.
Well, that's stuff we work on.
I learn every day. I really do, because as Jules and Valentina know, I'm not that good with people, really. And so here I am in this community, and I have to continually remind myself that that my job is not really to lead like a business leader. My job, I have two jobs in this community. One is I own the culture. This is a place it's safe, it's nurturing, it's loving. There's no toxicity, zero tolerance. Even for just someone being, just dismissing someone, I'll just cut it off, right? So I own the culture. This is a place that they're going to feel free to just say whatever they need to say and get, people around them to help them. And it's happening. It really is. No matter what's going on in this community, people come around and say, hey, call me. I can help you or whatever. That's number one. So that's my job, is make sure it's safe. And isn't that kind of weird as a leader? And then the other part is to dispense status. So people will become really engaged in a community if they feel they can show up in a way and they know they're going to be heard. Mm-hmm. And we want to be heard. We want to go to a place, just acknowledge me. I have this idea. I'm feeling stupid right now, but oh my gosh, he left me a smiley face. Oh, that's great. So I try to pay attention to just, nurturing people. And here's the most amazing thing, because I'm thinking, I started this community and all these people have these ideas, but I'm not going to do this. And so, someone said, well, I have this idea. I think we ought to do this. And I said, okay, why don't you do it? And they said, okay. And every new idea, I said, why don't you do it? And now everybody is leading this community. Mm-hmm. The people that are leading our metaverse experiments are in Ireland, Belgium, and Australia. And they're creating, and they're people. Valentina gave a speech in the metaverse. She lives in Johnson City. I guarantee you, she's the only person in the Tri-City area that's given a speech in the metaverse. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? She has a picture on her website of her giving a speech in the metaverse. I didn't do it. It wasn't my idea. Mm-hmm. You just got to let these amazing people, you got to trust the community, and the benefits have just been overwhelming. It's been one of the, I think this is going to be my legacy, because when I go away, the blog is going to go away and the podcast is going to go away. And, I won't be writing any books anymore. But this community will keep going because I'm not the star. It's part of my legacy, I think.
We'll talk about, and it came back to trust, right?
Comes back to trust.
That's the legacy that you are building, not just trust in the information that you are sharing as a writer, but trust in others to become more than they thought they were capable of being as individuals and as businesses. Like in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we're coming to you live. Also, thank you to Nate Brown on YouTube for the setup to that last question. But we've got people in this. We've got people in this room like Jasmine Newton that helps lead organizations like the Maker City. We've got people in this room like.
By the way, let me just say,
yeah,
Knoxville is the Maker City.
There we go. Let's do that.
Because we've got people listening in from all over the world.
Yes.
You need to pay attention to this city. There's heart here. There's infrastructure here. There's passion here. This is the Maker City. And, if you're thinking about starting a business and moving to the greatest place on earth, you got to put Knoxville on your map and come right here to the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. It's helped so many of my friends start their businesses.
That's so awesome. I think communities, as we sort of we're going to tie this up in a little bow here in a minute. But I did want to shout out to folks like Jasmine, to folks like Catherine Porth, who founded Let Her Speak, one of the most powerful women's empowerment organizations in East Tennessee.
Absolutely.
We've got John Terry here from Knoxville Outdoor Collective that brings people that care about the outdoors together, right?
Sounds like a community.
It sounds just like a community.
Just could be.
And okay, so while I'm asking him this question, I want you guys to think, because I want to take a couple live from the audience here in just a minute. So I'll ask for hands here in a second. So, we'll throw hands. But I've just made a really bad joke. But think about your question, and I will ask you. Well, I'm actually gonna, as a student of Peter Drucker.
I am.
Pete Drucker is a management philosopher.
No one called him Pete Drucker.
Peter, I'm sorry.
Pete, let's go have a beer.
I'm sorry.
You're the greatest management consultant in the history of the world.
Pete!
No.
I don't know,
He was Dr. Peter Drucker.
Dr. Peter Drucker, founder of one of the founders of the Harvard Business School. He says that businesses says it very simply. Because the purpose of business is to create a customer, the business enterprise has two basic functions. You may think it's harder. You may think it's more complicated. You may think that that mountain is built on tons of words, but he brings it down to two: marketing and innovation.
That's right. This is one of his most famous quotes. He said, everything in a company is marketing and innovation. Everything else is overhead. Because you have to have customers and keep them. That's marketing and innovation. And everything in the company has to support that.
And I think that's such an interesting take, because what are some steps that folks can take to create that value for the customer first? Always creating that value for the community. What are steps that some of these guys that are here, or the folks that are listening at home, what are some steps they can, as soon as this is over, what's an exercise that they can do to put some of that into action?
I got a call a couple months ago, and there's a young guy. He just got out of college. He's working for a company that makes ladders. And he said, Mr. Schaefer, would it be all right if I just have a quick call with you? Because, I'm trying to create my social media community around these ladders. And I said, have you been out to see your customers? He said, no. I said, I'll bet you've got a truck going out every day to deliver trucks, these ladders. He said, yeah. I said, here's what I want you to do. Go to your boss and say, for the next 2 weeks, you're going to ride around on trucks. And you're going to go and you're going to visit these customers and listen to these customers and say, look at what are your competitors doing? I'm guessing when I buy a ladder, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to get branded content. I'm not going to subscribe to your blog. I just want to be left alone. However, I might use a coupon. I might look at an end of aisle display. I might want to see what differentiates you from your customer when I buy that ladder. I might go online and do some research. What content is there around that? So it's not necessary. See, a lot of people just start with social media. Most of the time, that's the worst place to start because it's like throwing a bottle into the ocean. Woo! Is anybody going to see it? Now, social media is really important because you have the opportunity to connect with people all over the world. I mean, many people in this room, I first connected with them through some social media link. Probably everybody listening out in the world tonight connected with me somehow on social media. But now the thing is, once you connect with them on social media, somehow you got to get them to subscribe to your content, right? Because now you have reliable reach. They're opting out. They're opting into you, saying, it's okay for you to market to me. I'm going to subscribe to your blog or your YouTube channel. I am interested in you. So now you've built this next level of emotion. But unfortunately, that's where most businesses stop.
Mm-hmm.
Videos or a podcast. The next step is community. How do we take that audience and make it into a community? Because that lasts. It's the ultimate marketing, the ultimate emotion. I mean, a brand is what you feel about, and there's no better way to create that emotion than in a community.
Well, does anybody have in KEC, does anybody have any questions for Mark right now that you'd like to throw out there? Right over here. Oh, wait, we'll have our intrepid sound man, Sam, bring a mic so you guys out there in internet land can hear too.
I just wanted to know if there was an ending to the ladder story. What's the ending to that?
Oh, well, we went out on the damn truck.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, he went out on the truck. He went on the truck for 2 weeks, and he came back. He said, "Yep," because I mean, especially a lot of young people today, they think social media is kind of the beginning of the end and end of marketing, and the 4 P's of marketing still work really well. One of the little brain exercises I do in my workshops and my classes, because a lot of people say, well, we've got to have a purpose. We've got to have this. I said, think about everything that you bought in the last 2 weeks. Could be gas for your car, could be a shirt or a plant for your office. Now think about how many of those things you bought that because you knew where they stood on some purpose, or because of branded content, right? But all those things that you bought, they've got marketing people behind them. And they're thinking, how do we price this thing? How do we promote this thing? How do we distribute this thing better than anybody else? So there's all these brand ideas we're talking about are super important, but don't forget the basics of marketing. And a lot of young people are just completely miss that. They just think, oh, it's all about, TikTok. It's all about, doing the dance.
We've got a TikTok of our own. I'm just kidding. But remind the good folks out there what the 4 P's, the 4 principles of marketing are.
Price, place, promotion, and product.
There you go.
So, I mean, what you sell? 5 P's? What's P? Well, see, now we're getting into a debate.
Love it.
I actually think the 5th P is, I do think it is purpose. And especially with young people today. It does matter. I mean, what you do and how you do it. And people will pay more and they will defend you if you have shared meaning. Shared meaning is important. And I don't mean to dismiss that. So I'll argue with that. Come on.
Does anybody else here have any questions for Mark while we're here? Jasmine.
So a lot of people that I hear are always saying that they have a hard time with social media or marketing or building community because they are introverted.
Yeah.
So how does a person who is introverted and maybe is not sure what to say, don't think that there's anything interesting that they can really talk about aside from their product, what would you say to them?
So Jasmine is asking about introverts. And, I wanted to do this experiment one time. I wanted to look at the most famous personalities and all these great creators. And I wanted to put them through a Myers-Briggs test. And I kind of had a theory about who might stand out. And I'd probably be wrong, because almost, if you think about Seth Godin, and like someone I admire is Ann Handley, and Seth Godin and Ann Handley and me, we're introverts. I might not seem like an introvert to you right now, but when we're done here, I'm going to crawl under a blanket. I don't like big crowds. When I'm at an event, at a conference, I'll find an interesting person and I'll say, let's go talk over here. My wife cracked up. I was at this big thing in San Diego, and I was like the keynote speaker. I mean, there were like thousands of people that wanted to see me, and I'm like being swarmed by all these people. And I just walked away. I went to my hotel room. I called my wife and said, I'm having the perfect night. They left a bottle of wine here. I'm watching this Star Wars movie by myself in the hotel. That's my networking. I mean, no, but here's the thing. There's room for everybody. There really is. There's room for everybody. And if you don't like engaging a lot, start a podcast. You talk with one person and you don't get any comments. It's perfect. I love blogging because it's kind of cerebral, and you take your time, and you let it sit for a little bit and come back. But I mean, there's room for everybody. There really is. And you'd probably be surprised. Some of the most famous people out there are introverts. There was another question. How many? We have time for maybe
we got one more. Let's do a couple more questions.
If we run out of time for our live stream, I'll stay here and I'll answer whatever questions. Just come up to me, or if you have to leave, send me an email on my website. I'll make sure everyone's questions answered.
Community is very influential. It's very positive. It's very energetic. It can lead people to do great things. What happens when it becomes negative?
Well, here's the dark side.
What do you do when they turn against you?
What's the dark side of community? Well, I'm actually in a community for communities. It's quite meta.
A community.
It's a community. And there's community managers from all over the world, and they talk about those things. And talk about, sometimes, what I do, thankfully, I think the people who follow me know that I'm not going to tolerate mean people. So, gratefully, the people that come to me are kind of a built-in level of niceness. But there was an incident where there was a little toxicity. I thought it was inappropriate. And I just addressed the person and I said, nope. I said, I deleted your comment and we're not going to have it. And I value you and I cherish you and I need you here. But we have an opportunity to show up in a better way. We have an opportunity to show up as purposeful leaders that can nurture people. That's what we're growing here. And I want you to be part of it. And he was a young person that was learning. And he said, and he showed up in a whole new way now.
So confronting it head on. And you did say something interesting about that. A community is built of leaders and followers, right? Sometimes it's important to be that first follower that says, I love what's happening here and I want to expand on that. But everyone in this room has the potential to be a powerful leader as well in your community, in your business, in your home, in yourself, right? Does anybody have one more question from the audience?
There's one up here. Yeah.
So let's say you already have an audience established. It's well established.
Yeah.
How do you get to the community aspect of that more global audience?
I would just reach out to a few people that you trust. The people that are emerging as leaders in my community they're my friends, and that's where we really have to start. I would just say, look, I've got this idea. Like I had this example of this fellow in London. It just started out with people he would go to lunch with, and they kept saying, I want to bring someone else along. And this lunch kept getting bigger and bigger. And he said, let's create a Facebook group and see where it goes. And then all of a sudden they had an event. And then people, just like what happened with me, the volunteers started saying, I'll do this and I'll do this, and just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I would just bring a few people together and say, I have this idea. What do you think? And they may say, no, but if you did it this way, you might be humble and say, all right, let's try it this way. Because you've got to have a tremendous amount of humility. Because there's times I'm thinking, no, I want it to go this way. I mentioned that we've got this, we have a community-driven book. So we have 3 book covers. And the book cover that I like the least is the one they love. So let it go. Let it go. That's a song, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe we'll hold off
like
on
a
this.
Frozen song.
Yeah, maybe we'll hold off on singing Frozen.
Here's a lesson. You can either blog or you can know popular culture. You can't know both. So I think that's a song. But I'm not sure.
Well, I want to say thank you, and I'll set you up to have sort of to send everybody to the house.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to say to everybody here, stick around. We're going to be here answering questions.
Signing
Mark
books.
is here. If you're online,
There's a book cake.
there's a book. We are going to cut a book cake. If you're online, you'll just have to imagine it. We'll take pictures.
Yeah.
It's
like
awesome.
the metaverse.
We're going to get in a fake hot tub and cut a cake. But before Mark goes home and gets in his blanket, I just wanted to say, again, thank you to everyone here, not just for coming tonight, and everyone across the world that is listening. It's not just about showing up tonight. It's just about showing up.
Right. Yeah.
And it's about showing up for the community
Yeah.
that you are a part of and taking ownership of your role in that community. And that's where Mark speaks so well, belonging to the brand, belonging to a community and building it.
Number one. Look at that. Number one.
But before Mark sends us all home to get under our own blankets, I just wanted to say thank you. This is the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center. I am Chris McAdoo, and around here, I would love for you to learn more about what we do. knoxec.com. Follow us on all of the social channels, and check out madeforknoxville.com, where you're going to meet a little over 200 entrepreneurs of all shapes, sizes, stripes, interests, and all kinds of people that are coming from different places, doing different things, building their own community. So thank you to the folks here. Thank you to the folks listening online. Mark, what would you like to leave the good people with?
This is the way I end almost every one of my speeches. And I do believe in this idea of the most human company wins. And so we've covered a lot of ground today, but I think it gets down to be more human in everything that you do. I think the message is really just that simple. Be more human. The most human company will win the most human university, the most human insurance company. That's what the world needs more than ever right now. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, KEC. Thank all of you.
Everybody.
Thank you for listening at
Let's
home.
give yourselves
Thank
a
you.
hand.
Thank you.
Belonging to the brand.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.